Rev up your engine! Alright, today I'm going to tackle a problem that's very common. This Honda came with an aftermarket burglar alarm system, and it worked for a few years for the customers, but now it's going bonkers, turns itself on at random times. So I'm going to show you how you can disconnect an aftermarket alarm system. Now this one might be a little bit tricky because she didn't get a different fob for the alarm. They used the original Honda fob. Now, of course, there's no wiring diagram. We didn't even know yet what kind of alarm it is, so let's start looking at the wiring. Now, as we look under the hood, there are no obvious additional wiring that I can see yet, so we'll go under the dash. So we'll remove these screws to get the dash out, and we'll pop this cover off so we can get inside. Then we can pull the cover off and see inside. And off the whole thing comes on. Now we can see inside. And we unscrew 3 more screws, and down it comes. We'll get it out of the way. Now we can see everything under here. You take this inner panel out, but to do that, we have to pry this panel off. That whole thing will snap up. Now we can get this out of the way. They don't want to make it easy, but now we have that out of the way too. We can see all the wires that have been spliced in. Basically, we got to unsplice them. Now we'll start here. This is the ground wire. We'll just take it off. That grounds the alarm system. Now it's not grounded, so it shouldn't work at all anymore. But of course, the car won't start either. Because this is an alarm system, keeps your car from starting too. So what we want to do is find which power wires have been spliced and bypassed with the alarm and connect them back to the original configuration. And luckily they're all color coded, so black and white goes to black and white. We'll start checking them. Now here's a crucial wire here. This one is black with a white stripe. It goes to the alarm system. So we're going to cut it off right where it goes to the alarm system. We'll cut it right here. Then we'll look for the other black and white wire, which is coming out of the alarm system over here. So we're also going to cut that orange wire. Then we'll get the other black wire and the orange wire, and we'll cut off the insulation with these wire cutters. We're going to splice those 2 orange wires together, but first we're going to slide over some of this heat shrink, because you can't put it on after you put it together. So first, as you can see, the 2 wires are twisted together. Now we solder them on with solder. That's kind of hard to see, but the front part you can see. I'm soldering it together so the wires are nice and tight. Now the inside part I can't film, but I'll be doing the same thing there. And once it's nice and tight, you then get a heat gun and shrink the heat wrap. Now, I use matches sometimes if this is on side, I want to start a fire. You could use a hairdryer too. It shrinks it so nothing bothers it. It won't get moisture in. Easy job. Well, now we have the main power wire on, so just for curiosity, let's see if it starts. Starts right up. And guess what? Now the alarm isn't going to make obnoxious sounds and go off inadvertently anymore. Realize as long as you remove the power to the alarm system and return the power back to the original power system, in this case of the Honda system, the car will start and run and go perfectly normally. And that disconnects the aftermarket alarm. And now of course comes the fun of putting all the covers back on. This cover on first, so the side cover here goes on first. Slide it in, tap it all in place. That snaps in. Screw the side panel in here. Snap the bottom panel on. Then snap the top one on. Make sure all the pieces snap in. And clip this piece back in. Wrong way. Snaps in too. And don't forget to put all the screws back in so it doesn't rattle. So always double check your work when you're done. Away we go. Now I always warn people about doing this anyway. This is a Honda Accord. It already has an immobilizer key. It's got this fancy cut too. It's very hard to copy. But it's an immobilizer key. It uses a signal, tells the computer whether the car can start around. It already had an anti-theft system. Why anybody put a burglar alarm system on top of that is beyond me. Now, the lady bought this car 5 years ago, and strangely enough, the key worked perfectly fine for almost all those 5 years, but now the alarm kept going off randomly. They can do weird things when you put an alarm system on top of another alarm system. Take my advice. Never do it yourself and you won't have this problem. But if you do have this problem with the alarm going off of an aftermarket alarm, now you know how to disconnect it yourself. And here's some bonus questions and answers. Well, here's an interesting statistic. The rich boy car company Bentley posted a record sales year even during the pandemic. So as they say, The rich get richer. Well, that's certainly a truism here. They delivered 11,206 vehicles in 2020. Now, that'll show you that's a record for them. Well, you know, they don't make that many cars, and there's lots of rich people on the planet. Now, they used to just make hundreds of examples a year a couple decades ago, so they've certainly grown. And the biggest growth was in China, where it grew 48%. So the rich do get richer even in a communist country. A little bit of an irony there. Not exactly my cup of tea. I've worked on them, and, you know, not that impressive. They're, you know, big old luxury car, heavy wood and all that stuff in them. You know, it's the snob appeal stuff. And the Chinese have taken over now. And the opposite thing, you used to think the Chinese have taken over, that they're making everything. This time they bought more Bentleys than we did. I guess one can really wonder about the realism of communism in communist China when they bought more Bentleys than we did in capitalist United States. The world spins. I think it's starting to spin the other way and it's turned itself upside down. OBS Ford guy says, auto stop feature in my driver window will not go all the way down. It goes part way down, 2 to 3 inches, and stops. If I cycle it a bunch of times, it'll eventually go all the way down. I did have some ice on the door, but no matter how warm it is, it acts the same. Here's what probably happened. It was binding. Somehow it got to bind, and the way it stops all the way down is it goes to the bottom and it gets resistance, and then the motor knows and it shuts itself off. So odds are something's making it bind. Now spray the front and the back lip, the rubbers that it rides on, with spray silicone, and maybe it won't bind anymore. That should fix it. You say you only got 7,000 miles on a vehicle, so I can't see that it's bent. Now, if it was really bad and there was ice or something in there, it could have actually bent the runners, and now they're always going to go, and you'd have to take them apart and unbend them and put new runners in it. But putting spray silicone in there, now it's cold where you are because you said ice, you might have to bring it into a heated garage, let it thaw out, and then spray the silicone. But it's probably binding, and when it gets down low, if it binds too much, it'll then stop right there. That's how it goes, by pressure. Jerry Hinkle 3 says, guys, I'm curious about the AMC Rambler from the 60s for a weekend car. I like the look of them. Were they good cars or just 2-ton paperworks? Okay, they were okay. You know, the thing is, AMC, they ended up going bankrupt. Chrysler bought them, and they only bought them so they could get the Jeeps, and they retired all the other cars. But, you know, they're kind of fun. They're simple cars. And, of course, AMC never had that much money, so they had really old technology in them, you know, drum brakes, all that stuff on them. But they can be fun, and you can toy around with them. You can still get parts for them. If you like the look of it, by all means, go. Just first, do what I always do. Jack them up, look under. Hit the frame with a hammer. If the frame's rotten and it's falling apart, don't buy it. They're rust buckets if they stayed up north all the time and the salt in the road ate them up. If the frame's all rotten, don't even think about buying it. But if the frame's solid, hey, most of them had those straight 6 engines. They can run forever, and you can have some fun with them. You can get it pretty cheap too. Well, here's one for you guys in the snowy, icy climates. Here's some good windshield covers you can buy cheaply enough to cover your windshield on the night before the storm comes, so you don't have to deal with all the crazy nonsense of scraping all that ice and stuff off. The first one is the EcoNor windshield cover. It's like 28 bucks. Not a bad deal. It is a soft inner layer, and the little holders go around your side view mirrors. Easy to put in place, easy to take off. There's also the Gamuri cover. It's 16 bucks. Same thing, goes over the side view mirrors. Now, if you want to go whole hog, there's one called PVG, Car Windshield Snow Cover. It covers both your windshield and your left and right windows that you're looking out, so you don't have to scrape that either. Of course, it costs more, but it's going to cover a whole bunch of stuff, so you'll hardly have any work other than taking the cover off when you're done. You wouldn't have to scrape your side windows. If you care about looking out your rear view mirror, there's the Altacaco rear windshield cover. It's 10 bucks, goes over the back, so you can see when you're backing up what's behind you. I remember when I was a kid, we went to school in 6th grade. We had a carpool, and it was this lady down the street time to go, and she was from Boston, and even though this was Niagara Falls, her car was covered with snow, and she had a little hole so she could see out the front. That was it. She didn't want to get wet and snowy, so no time. I had no idea what was on the side or behind her, or even to the right a little bit. She had a little hole she was looking through. So if you're thinking about trying to make your life easier in ice and snow country, you might think about buying one of these covers and putting it on. Not a bad idea. Or if you just want the easiest way that costs nothing, do like pros did when I was young. Before the storm at night, take your windshield wipers and just flip them up so they're not touching your windshield. You can easily scrape the ice off without wrecking your windshield. You know, if they're frozen on, if the wipers are frozen in the windshield, then you don't want to break them. It's a big mess. You got to wait till it heats up the defrost to melt it. But if you got them up in the air, then they're not stuck on and you can scrape it off easier. That's the easiest, cheapest way of doing it. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.